So, good morning. This is just a short and sweet one. I'm in one of the Brooklyn parks. Look, like this is can we see? This is where we had pizza last night because there's the skyline, there's Manhattan, and without being too kind of sorry to be English about this, too much of a plunker, because I don't like showing off at all. I just want to illustrate the point that property made this happen. So I'm head of household. I have been for a long time. So I have double the responsibility, double the trouble, and double the hugs and double the love, which is lovely. But it means I have one salary or had one salary supporting an entire family. That was pretty tough without it being a terrible sob story. I was very happy, my family was very happy, but it was really tough. There's no way a number of years ago I would have been able to afford to take my son, who has basically been skateboarding every day. He meets me for lunch, which is lovely. I think cupboard love is a special phenomenon, isn't it, between 19-year-old sons? And he's met pro skaters and he's been skating in all of what for him is like really meaningful, really important locations. I've been hanging out with my sister. I've had a gorgeous time in New York, and I've just spent some time in Portugal, and I'm just going off in a couple of weeks to Rio because my coach has made the Olympics. I mean, that would simply have been unattainable, not even within my sphere of ability to have that for my life, let alone to treat and support and care for my children that way. And property has done all this. So, when is the best time to buy property? 20 years ago, yes, I agree. And now is the second best time. So yes, and why don't we just sit here and enjoy the skyline, shall we? Can you see? There's Manhattan right behind me, which is really cool. After this, I'm going to go for a run. I think I'm doing these videos just to put the run off. But I'm going to go for a run. So when is the best time to buy a property? Well, it's now. It's always now. And you can sit there and think, okay, but hang on, the property market is going up. So hang on, I want to buy it in a recession. I want to buy it when it's low. Well, but if you buy a property and you're going to buy and sell it, well, that's fantastic that the market's going up. Just make sure that you think you've got kind of 6 to 9 months of growth ahead of you, and then you're going to make a really nice lump sum. I would really hope. Excuse me, my hair's escaping. And then what if you're buying that property, the market's going up, and you're going to rent it? Well, buy it as discounted as you possibly can, fabulous, and then make sure you've got a really good yield. Now yield, everyone does it differently, but the way I do it is annual rent divided by purchase price. I just keep things really simple, and it means that you can compare apples with apples. And I want you to have a 10% yield and above, and if you're struggling for that, well, look at other ways of doing it. So is it a single-let to a multi-let? Can you do serviced apartments? If you're doing serviced apartments, it's loads of cleaning, it's loads of managing cleaners and laundry, but there's all sorts of ways you can do it. Can you rent it out long term to a kind of a charity or a social company? Samaritans, one of my friends does, and he gets kind of 17% yield, which is amazing, because he supplies really good product, and he's a fantastic landlord, and he's a vulnerable people, so he's supplying a specific product to. But anyway, I diverse. So even if you're buying on the way up, make sure you're buying discounted so that if there was a drop, you've got some profit left in and you've got some cushioning left in, and you're going to buy to keep. Well, make sure you've got as close as or over, and most of mine are over. I think I've only got 3 or so that are under a 10% yield. And yeah, okay, so you're buying in a market that goes up and down and up and down. Well, if you're buying for 25 years, in the nicest way, what does it matter? As long as you can buy discounted, refinance, renovate, refinance, and pull most of your money back out. And oh, isn't that exciting? Hang on, can we see this? Helicopters. New York, I've discovered, is not quiet. I have not had one moment of silence in New York apart from on the High Line, and even then, yeah, just. So yes, buy in a rising market, but again, make sure your price is good, and make sure you've got a 20% markup for a buy to sell, and make sure you're looking at PESEL, political, economic, social, legal, technological, and environmental, but particularly political, economic, social, legal, and technological. Is there anything on the horizon that you can see that might impact on you being able to have a very strong buy to sell strategy or a very strong rental strategy? On a going down market, you might think, oh, I'm going to hang off until it's hit the bottom. Don't. because you want to buy the next one on its way down, and the next one, and then it hits the bottom, you buy the next one, because you don't know where the bottom is. So just buy. But whatever the cost, the price is at the moment, make sure you're getting a discount from it. And guess what? If you're doing a buy to sell on a decreasing market, well, that's less exciting, but I've done it. So what you need to plan in for that is it's going to take longer to get a buyer, so you're going to have more costs. You're going to have, water, council tax, gas, electricity. If you're using finance, then you're going to have longer bridging costs. Well, just put them into your spreadsheet, and if you can get a 20% markup for like 3 to 6 months longer to sell the property, do it. But if you can't get a 20% markup, don't do it. And again, if you're renting and it's decreasing and you can get 10% yield and you're buying discounted so you can refinance and pull most or all of your money back out, do it. Don't be like, oh my God, I'm not going to buy it today because next week it's going to be cheaper, or the week after it's going to be cheaper. Yeah, but the next house, because you've got to always measure up how much time have you got to do this. For about 7.5 years, I was on a complete buying schedule at all times. Excuse me, I've got this crazy bit of hair. And at no point did I stop buying. And so my biggest inhibitor was, yes, money, but also time. I just didn't have any more time to manage any more refurbs, and I couldn't safely have more than the number of refurbs I had on the go at any one time. And if you're buying in a rising market, a flat market, fine. Hopefully the economy is flat and you've got good interest rates that are flat as well, but also the values are flat. And you know what? That's going to help you do your evaluation. So there is not a time that you shouldn't be buying property, in my view, as long as you buy deals, you buy discounted, you get good yield and good markup for doing buy to sell. Those basically give you the kind of, cycle helmet or the seatbelt that you need. So don't wait for a better time to buy. There is not a better time to buy. You need to be buying throughout the cycles, in my opinion. I mean, later on, you may decide that as the market gets toppy, you might decide, look, I'm going to step back. But in the early days, I just want you to buy at an appropriate price that means whatever happens to the market, you can navigate out. So I bought in a recession. I bought the majority of my first portfolio in a recession when everybody around me was terrified and everybody was telling me I was crazy. And yeah, it was nerve-wracking. I turned on Radio 4 every day to doom and gloom and the Lehman Brothers and, all of that stuff. And yes, it was terrifying. So I did a couple of things. I mitigated my risk by taking 5-year fixed mortgages. So at least I knew what my costs were going to be, so that if the market got a bit choppy, at least I've fixed for a long period of time my mortgage cost. Now, take financial advice, decide whether that's appropriate for you. And then I was sure that I could get really good rentals, so that I knew that if I was buying to sell but it didn't sell, I could always rent it out and I'd make money doing it that way. I've been bought in a rising market. Last couple of years have been a rising market, and I've bought tons. But I've always made sure I bought discounted, so that whatever happens in the rising market, I could refinance. And again, personally, I just went for longer term fixed. I think I've got almost no variables at all. And that's just because I'm in the first 7-8 years of my portfolio build. And for me, fixed in the early years when you're most vulnerable, well, I'm less vulnerable now, but in the early years I was, like anybody, I was quite vulnerable. It just makes sense. I'm trying to mitigate some of my risks. So all this to say, just do it, but make sure you have a deal. Do not buy it if it's not giving you kind of near on a 10% yield, and do not buy it if you're not damn sure it can give you a 20% markup after all costs for a buy to sell. Now, okay, I've bought things at 17% markup, and occasionally I've been a bit naughty because I'm sure that social economically the street's amazing, it's going to sell super well, but I'm trying to give you guidelines that are going to keep you safe. Just do it. Property changes lives. Property changed my life. It's going to change your life too, as long as you get it right. And the first step to getting it right is buying it discounted, making sure you get yield, making sure you got markup, and actually getting in the game. I hope you do really well, and see you soon. Bye.